Well, hello, welcome everybody. Happy to have you back for this 4-part video series. We are talking about love and New Age mysticism and taking a closer look at these notions of soulmates and twin flames and what that means. And what I am doing with this series is kind of introducing the notion of ascended partnership. And so it's something a little bit different than soulmates, closer to the notion of twin flames as Edgar Cayce describes it. But we're going to talk a little bit more about how I define an ascended partnership more specifically in this video here today. And if you are just joining us, this is the third in a 4-part video series exploring love and New Age mysticism. And it is in promotion of my signature course, Healing Attachment Wounds, which I am running for the first time as a live group coaching program starting in May. We are only accepting 8 participants into the group. It's going to be 10 sessions, live group coaching call sessions with me, where I walk your hand through 7 weeks of self-directed content, which you have access to. And then we meet together in the live space and I address questions directly. And then we have 3 expert presenters coming to participate with us as well. So again, it's the first time I'm ever doing this in the live group coaching space. And I'm doing it because my last program, live group coaching program, Hungry Love, which is a 6-month program, went really well. And it just is ending this month. And the participants have all told me that being in the live space with other individuals who are struggling with the same things and wanting the same things got a lot out of that experience. So I've decided to bring that component to Healing Attachment Wounds for the first time. And there's only 8 spots available. So if you've been following me for a while and you've been kind of waiting for the right offer to work with me, this is probably a good time to get in because it's a beta launch, which means that it's going to be a lower price point than it will be in the future if I decide to do it again. So these 4-part videos, these are intended to be in promotion of that course. Now, I know that sometimes people are like, well, I don't know if I really want to do that or if I want to be in this space. I don't know what it's like. So to help you get over that hump, we are also doing a live challenge this month. And I'm going to tell you more about that. It's a free live challenge where you're going to have an opportunity to get into the live group coaching space with me and ask questions about love and romance and attachment and things like that. So I'm going to tell you more about the challenge at the end of this video. But for now, let's pop in and talk about what we are explicitly wanting to explore today, and that is a definition for ascended partnership. And so I want to start with a quote. Voltaire, who was a French historian, writer, and philosopher, was quoted as saying, "Happiness is often the only thing that we can give without having, and it is by giving that we receive it." And so I really interpret this to mean that a loving relationship has to start with you, with the choice to love yourself undeniably, even when all the messages that you may have callously received would seem to be to the contrary. And so to put yourself first is to care for yourself as if you are carrying a helpless and defenseless child inside of you, because you do. And that child needs love and nurturance and protection, reassurance, and sometimes a little nudge to pick themselves up and try again. And when we beat ourselves up or we demand better of ourselves, or we abandon ourselves entirely for what we claim is the sake of a partner or the relationship as a whole, we tell that child inside of us that he or she isn't good enough, and then we neglect their needs. And we repeat a pattern of dismissal that was handed down to us, sometimes from generation upon generation. But when we claim that child as our own, and we do so above all others, we commit ourselves to loving that child, feeding that child, defending that child, and giving it what it needs to really grow and mature in a healthy way. And if we can do that, we feel filled up with that loving feeling that is both giving and receiving. And so we start to see more clearly what will allow us to feel more on fire about life. And then we tap into these deep wells of vitality and creative energy. And so we are also better equipped to discerningly choose partners who feed their own inner child as well. Okay. And so when you meet a partner that is willing to join you in that practice, that is when you both show up in your most authentic and what I am going to call ascended selves. And so what does an ascended partnership look like? Well, I'm going to start with the practical, and then we're going to move into the more esoteric. So from a practical perspective, and I'm going to approach this through the framework of attachment theory and psychodynamic approaches. So an ascended love that takes place in a practical perspective, let's call an interdependent relationship. So that is a relationship in which partners are comfortable apart and they're comfortable together. They're not threatened by intimacy, and they're also not threatened by fears of abandonment. And so through the frame of attachment specifically, we might think of it as a secure relationship. And I call secure partners cornerstones. Now, these cornerstones have certain characteristics. So they experience a comfortability with being close. They don't feel a need to push a partner away when things get intimate, and they also don't feel a need to cling for fear of being pushed away. They are quick to forgive their partner in an argument because they assume that their partner only has the best of intentions for them and the relationship at heart. Sex is emotionally intimate because they don't feel a need to split emotional intimacy and physical intimacy into two separate categories in order to avoid closeness or exert some kind of control or power in the relationship. Generally, cornerstone partners are loving, and they're respectful towards one another in manner and in speech, and they don't feel a need to chastise or be spiteful or degrade their partner in an argument. Cornerstone partners are also secure in their ability to make changes in the relationship if need be. They are not rigid in their ideas, and they are willing to compromise or reprioritize because they don't expect that one compromise means that they have to fully abandon themselves or their desires for the remainder of the relationship. But more practically and concretely, we might even explore, well, what would these types of partners even do with each other? So here's a very specific, concrete list of what that might be. So communicate in ways that promote mirroring, empathy, and validation. Listening to their partners and expressing themselves authentically, using the word love with sincerity and a depth of meaning. Do what they say and say what they mean. They might make time during every day to spend at least 1 hour of solid, undivided attention to each other, plan trips and adventurous vacations together, read the same books and talk about them, plan rituals around watching your favorite TV shows together, dividing domestic responsibilities equally and or having a mutually agreed upon contract for how you're going to handle the routines and the necessities of everyday life, giving each other space and not feeling insecure or jealous about it. Partners don't obsess over how long it takes one another to text the other back. They don't shut down or threaten to leave when someone doesn't behave well. They voice their concerns when they have them rather than pushing it down for fear of being too needy or feeling too vulnerable or weak and fearing ultimate rejection and abandonment. Viewing arguments as a necessary part of deepening intimacy and getting to know and love your partner for who they are rather than this fantasy of what you've created in your mind. And so here are some statements that might reflect a cornerstone attachment style. It's a secure relationship, what I'm calling an ascended partnership. So I find it easy to be affectionate with my partner. I'm generally satisfied with my romantic relationships. I don't feel a need to act out in my romantic relationships. I have little difficulty expressing my needs and my wants to a partner. I believe most people are essentially honest and dependable. I'm comfortable sharing my personal thoughts and feelings with a partner. An argument with my partner doesn't usually cause me to question the entire relationship. Sometimes people see me as boring because I create little drama in relationships. When I disagree, I am comfortable expressing my feelings and my opinions. When my partner's upset, I don't immediately assume it's something I did. I don't have an issue being friends with my ex. After all, I respect them and we have a lot in common. I don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out what my partner means or obsessing over what they're thinking and feeling. I just ask and trust that they're being forthright. If it turns out that they're not being forthright, then I can decide whether or not it's a deal breaker and move on. So these are some very specific things that I wanted to share today in terms of what does a secure partnership look like, what I am going to refer to as an ascended partnership. Now let's step into a more esoteric exploration. So now more esoterically, we might describe this as a relationship in which both partners are operating from a higher level of consciousness, and they are able to hold that high vibe of love, compassion, and acceptance for one another without needing to draw upon fantasy to create drama, compare a partner to an idealized version in their heads, or depend on another person to organize their feelings for them and make them feel worthy. And so for some, this might read and think, you might read and listen to this and think it sounds kind of like a boring, stale type of relationship where there's no sense of challenge to spice things up. And so for those individuals, drama has come to be associated with passion and feeling alive. But then what happens when you're not in partnership? Does that mean that you are dead? Well, for a lot of people, unfortunately, the answer is often yes. It's a state of derealization, moving through life as if it is a dream or perhaps a nightmare, not feeling fully present in their lives, disconnected from their inner being. And so when they encounter a partner that lights them on fire, they are vitally infused, so much so that they come to view this person as a soulmate or a twin flame. And maybe they are, in the sense that this person has attracted a difficult relationship so that they might awaken to consciousness, and they are in essence being forced to snap out of it. So for example, when I was in my early 30s, I briefly dated someone right after my divorce. And it was one of those fast and furious things that really has no label. And it kind of left me wondering if I had just made it all up in my head. And so I spoke to a spiritual advisor and psychic, and I asked her for some guidance and advice. And she suggested that I consider the joy that might come out of pleasurable and easeful partnerships, and why not shift my energy to focus in that direction. But I was way too hung up on this guy, and why didn't he love me as much as I loved him? And another thought popped into my head, which I had not realized I'd had before. And before I could voice that thought aloud, she said, "Oh, Brianna, I can hear you already. You think that if you're not in pain, then your art and your other creative works aren't going to be any good." And when she said that, I just burst out sobbing because it was true. I really did think that way. I thought that I performed my best when I was at my most miserable. And if you took away my misery, I would not only be common, but worse yet, I would be mediocre. I would truly be the shit artist I always thought I was. And so every aspect of creative expression would become cliched and trite and uninteresting, and I wouldn't be living as authentically. There just wouldn't be anything special about me. And so there was nothing qualitatively interesting or appealing to me about contentment. It just seemed kind of like a boring coward's way out of living life to its highest highs and its deepest depths. Because on some level, that drama proved my worth one way or the other. The drama of performing well enough to earn love. And so if there wasn't a competition in which there was something to prove, then there was a deafening kind of silence and black emptiness in which I had no way to define myself or conceive of my value. So if you only ever think of yourself as a player in a game and you take away the game, what are you? You cease to exist in a true existential sense. And quite frankly, you're right. Because at least that part of my ego self, the part of me that was over-identified with being a game player, that part would have to die. And the part of me that thought that I needed to play that role in order to survive would have to die. A metaphorical death. In order for me, in my entirety, to truly grow out of that drama cycle, to truly become much more of what I was, which is far more than a game player. Okay. And so I had to realize that that mechanism, that ego-based perspective was distracting me from seeing the real beauty in things like these quiet moments of mediocrity. And even my assessment of commonness was a criticism that obscured the truest value and, I would say, uniquely divine spark that resides in everything and is infinitely mysterious and intriguing in its complexity. And so my spiritual advisor said to me, "Do you judge all works of art and poetry that stem from joy as mediocre or common? Have none of those things moved you just as well as those that came from pain?" And I have to be honest with you, at the time they had not. Because I had not yet experienced for myself that kind of inspiration. Because words don't teach, and neither does logic. Only felt experiences teach us. But you do have a choice in which experiences you are going to pursue, in which ones you are going to cling to tooth and nail, and which ones you are going to let go of to create space for new experiences, inspiring experiences, dare I say, winks from the universe. And so it wasn't until 4 years after I had that conversation with my spiritual advisor, through a confluence of events in my life, that I finally turned towards that black, vacuous emptiness, rather than desperately run from it. And so ultimately I decided that I was going to look for inspiration instead of cling to my pain. And just as fast, the drama started to seep out of my life. And I found this new type of self-definition because I realized that if I was willing to look, there's actually inspiration all around you. And growth does not have to be painful. And pain doesn't make something, i.e., love, more authentic. It just makes it more difficult. So why suffer? And so a relationship in which partners join together from a place of inspiration, as opposed to a fear-based need to be filled up with the other, is what I define as an ascended partnership. And so it is a partner who already has a certain level of consciousness, and they're looking for purposeful building as opposed to stimulating the most sensitive parts of one another to facilitate some form of soul growth. And that is an increasing self-definition. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that your soul stops growing in these relationships, but it's really more like the curriculum changes. So here's another metaphor and story for you. Now, let's imagine that you've been running a race with a scraped knee and a sprained ankle, and each soulmate shows up kind of like a medical assistant to change the bandage and maybe pour some alcohol on the wound and reset your ankle. And that really hurts, doesn't it? But ultimately, you're happy to see them and you're grateful for the pain because it means that you're going to heal better and you're going to be able to run faster. Now, let's say your wounds in your ankle have finally healed. The holes are plugged in your boat. And you're running better than ever. Without the pain or the scraped knee or the sprained ankle, you can actually start focusing on something other than the pain you were in and start to sit up and really take a look all around you. And you start to really see the world with new eyes and a sense of receptivity and curiosity. And so in this kind of wondrous state, you want your running, that whatever it is that you are doing, whatever action you are taking in the world, you want your running to make a difference. You want it to mean something to a larger community. Once you are out of survival mode, the world opens up to you. And so maybe you decide, I want to run the Olympics. Or you want to run a marathon to support a worthy cause. And so to accomplish this, you need someone equally experienced and trained to help you hone your skills and put your full potential to good use. So maybe you attract a teammate, a sponsor, a new coach or trainer. However this person arrives, the two of you are united and committed to accomplishing something purposeful and meaningful together for the greater good, which is only possible because you aren't in a state of constant struggle and injury anymore. Again, the holes in your boat have been plugged. And so now it's time to decide, what direction are you going to go in? And let's say if it is a romantic partner you call in for this ascended partnership, I would wager that you would still know right away and fall just as headlong into that relationship. So when it comes to soulmates, as we've discussed in the previous videos, the intensity of the relationship is reflective of the strength and importance of the soul lesson that they may represent for you, which is essentially an opportunity to spiritually expand. When it comes to ascended partners, however, it's just not going to feel that antagonistic. It will feel more like coming home. But this doesn't mean that you're not passionate, that you're not excited, that you're not inspired by this partner. It will feel like, there you are. Oh my God, I'm so glad you made it. It's so good to see you. I see why this had to happen the way it did, and I am so elated that it went just this way. In fact, it is so perfect, I would almost be willing to wait another 5 minutes for you. Isn't it amazing and exciting to think about all the good things that we are going to accomplish together? I just cannot wait to get down to business. I'm also of the opinion that the universe would never be so cruel as to give you only one shot at partnership and happiness, whether it's with a soulmate or an ascended partner. I believe that we have many of both. But the criterion for calling in an ascended partner specifically is that you are ready for them. So if you're preoccupied or you're caught up in the mechanisms of old wounds and you're still looking for someone to save, fix, or organize you, it's going to make it really hard to attract and engage in ascended partnership. So I look forward to seeing and reading your comments below this video on the content we've discussed so far. And if you do find yourself stuck in this kind of preoccupied cyclical space, you're going to want to join us for this live video we're going to do on the 10th. And we're going to be doing a guided meditation on opening the heart chakra to help you receive that ascended partnership. And again, this live promotion, this video, is in promotion of healing attachment wounds with mindfulness and creative arts interventions. Again, I'm running it for the first time ever as a live group coaching program. Small group of people, 8 max. We have 6 spots left. And it is a course that offers 7 creative, fun, easy lessons over the course of 7 weeks. And it takes you from feeling lost and confused about your romantic partnerships to stepping into your fullest and most sovereign self without having to talk in circles around your feelings for hours, or let's be honest, even years on end with no tangible result. And so in addition to the 7 weeks of content, I also have 3 guest experts joining us. One is the lovely Kristen Von Fox, who is a shaman and health coach that will be guiding us through a soul journey to retrieve any aspects of ourselves that we need to uncover. We also have Kyle Benson joining us, who works at the Love Lab at the Gottman Institute. If you're not familiar, John Gottman wrote the best-selling book, 7 Principles to Make Marriage Work. And Kyle is going to be bringing to the course a tremendous amount of evidence-based information regarding conflict in long-term relationships. And lastly, we have the lovely Sasha Fossa, who is a sex therapist and a certified erotic blueprints coach. And she is going to be talking to us about how sexuality plays into ascended partnerships. So if this is something you are interested in, I invite you to check out the links in the caption of this video. If you don't know me and you're not sure yet if this is something that you're interested in, I invite you to sign up for our free challenge, 4 Steps to a Passionate Partnership. And this challenge is intended to help you become a healthy lover and attract soul-shaking love. So it's for the wounded lover interested in building their self-confidence, becoming irresistibly attractive to a partner, and calling in that passionate relationship, even if you are anxiously needy, have a fear of intimacy, or you believe that you're just not good enough. And so we are going to do several things over the course of 4 days. We're going to clear your focus and your energy and do a guided meditation to get rid of those unwanted energetic cords that are blocking you. We're also going to have an assessment of attachment styles, but we're also going to be taking a look at 3 different relationship styles that result of these attachment styles. I've talked a lot about the anxious avoidant trap on this channel, but this is going to include 2 more relationship styles that I have not addressed before in this challenge. We're also going to do a focus wheel to turn your deepest fears into your greatest strengths when it comes to love. And we're going to do another guided meditation for opening the heart chakra and raising your loving vibration. This is going to be an extension of the live call we are going to be doing on the 10th. Lastly, there is a 32-page downloadable PDF workbook with experiential exercises that you could have today if you decide to sign up for that challenge, again, through the link in the caption of this video. So I would love to see any comments or questions. We are at the end of our time for today's recording, but I'm going to be addressing Q&As at the end of this video series. So make sure that you are commenting with your thoughts and your impressions, and I will be popping back on here live to address them by the end of this series. Thank you so much.